As of Monday, Donald Trump could lower the boom on his threat that sent Ottawa into a panic. Cinch the border up tight to prevent the illegal crossings of people and drugs into America, or he'll slap 25% tariffs on Canadian goods being sent south. That shot across the bow pressured the federal government to come up with a plan, and fast. A $1.3 billion border and immigration security plan was hastily promised to include policy changes such as heightened scrutiny on visitor visa applications in Canada, measures targeting abuse in Canada's asylum system, likely changes to the international student program, and new border hardware, including more aerial surveillance towers, a first-ever pre-border clearance point in New York, 60 new drones, including 2 Black Hawk helicopters, one of which we are showing you for the first time today. Joining me to talk about the border and what the RCMP are doing about it, we have Mathieu Bertrand, who is the Director General of Federal Policing and Border Integrity for the RCMP. That's a big job. What have you been focusing on lately, Matt?
Thank you for having me. As you can imagine, the RCMP's been focused on ensuring our border security is ready for any impending changes that could happen. We've been able to do that by acquiring new assets. We have the government's support, both federally and provincially, to ensure we have the capabilities required to be able to ensure this security of the border.
You have a pretty big, impressive capability here that was acquired in record time.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes, you're right. Again, it's been all hands on deck, not only in the RCMP, but with all our partners in the federal department. In discussions, not only internally, but with our partners in the United States law enforcement community, there was a desire to increase our capacity, and specifically in the air surveillance and our ability to respond quickly. And these helicopters are going to allow our good folks on the ground to be able to do that.
And you previously didn't have the ability to rapidly deliver a team. You had helicopters, but they are smaller, they can't hold a lot of people. What drew you to the Black Hawk specifically?
And you said it. It's really about the ability to move people quickly. You're right. We already had an existing complement of 9 helicopters in the RCMP, 6 of which were dedicated to patrolling the border. The Black Hawks give us an ability to move people and move people quickly. Things happen quickly on the border. As you can imagine, on a 9,000 kilometer border, there are some situations where we need to move our resources. We need to move our resources quickly. These choppers give us that ability.
I know you can move quickly now. Are you able to arrest Canadians who are, or non-Canadians too, who are trying to cross illegally into the United States?
Crossing illegally into the United States is part of our function in border integrity. As I mentioned, you cannot protect the border only by being on one side. That's why we work so well with our U.S. law enforcement partners. Really, our responsibility in Canada is to ensure people understand that crossing between the ports of entry is illegal. Whether it's into Canada or into the United States, that is an illegal activity, and all people need to go to controlled ports of entry. By being present on the border, we deter criminal activity from going into the United States.
So I'd imagine some of this is about the look and the message that a Black Hawk sends.
Well, it's more about the capabilities, to be quite honest. You said it. We did not have, before the Black Hawks, an ability to move our resources quickly and with the range that the Black Hawks give us. That was the main reason for going to this type of helicopter.
You have 2 now. Will you be looking to increase that capacity? My understanding is you'd like to have 4, ideally.
Obviously, we need to be stewards of the funds that are allotted to the RCMP. This is a good starting point. We will wait and see the capability this affords us. We are all obviously assessing the situation on the border, and we will acquire what is required to respond.
One of the questions that I get a lot from people is who's flying these? Are these RCMP officers? Is it contract? How does that work?
So in order for us to be able to add this capability to the RCMP air services in a quick fashion, these helicopters are leased at the current time.
And that would come with the crew as well?
That's correct, yes.
Do you think that you're prepared for what could happen after day one of the Trump administration if Donald Trump does implement this promise of mass deportations, given what we saw in Roxham Road before, which was on a lesser scale with lesser threats? Are you prepared for that?
Absolutely. It's important for people to know that we've been preparing for this for months. This is an exercise the RCMP does anytime there's a significant shift in what could happen at the border. Specifically in terms of elections, we've done it now 3 times where we assess potential change in policies of our partner country, and we ensure that we can respond appropriately. What you're seeing today is part of that response.
Did Donald Trump's pressure accelerate something that I know the RCMP had been asking for a long time with helicopters?
We've been assessing our capabilities in the Border Integrity Program in the RCMP Air Services since 2023. That's what enabled us to be able to acquire these assets as quickly as we needed them.
Matthew, good luck. I know you've got a big job ahead of you and some brand new assets to do it. Thank you so much for inviting us to be here today.
Thank you very much for your time.
We're going to do something a little bit different today. We have a chance to speak to some very special people who we don't usually get to hear from, members of the RCMP's elite emergency response team. We're joined right now by Staff Sergeant Rob Tan. You're the team leader for Central Division in Ontario. Really big job. You are one of the people leading the teams on this helicopter. Tell me what you're doing on this platform.
Starting today, we'll commence surveillance and enforcement action on the borders from New Brunswick straight across to Alberta with our helicopters. So we'll be doing surveillance, detecting any in coordination with our assets on the ground, and just border integrity enforcement, and take any actions that need to be taken for the enforcement on that responsibility.
So if you needed to, you guys are sort of this high-level capability that's capable of responding, arresting, putting people back on the helicopter.
Yeah, that's correct. In a lot of the austere environments and the places we can't reach conventionally, we'll be able to observe them. We'll be able to deploy into those areas, conduct enforcement action as required, and be able to extract and remove from those locations as well, which we didn't have that capacity before.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you guys work on helicopters, but they're much smaller than this, and my understanding is you couldn't fit a full team. So what does this allow you to do differently than what you could do before?
Oh, well, these are workhorses, so we can, the capacity is much higher. We can put more people in it. We can have more operators on board. Conversely, if we have to make arrests or conduct enforcement, we can load it up with more passengers as well, have a greater range of area. It also allows us to literally reach and deploy fast rope and different methods of exit and entry back onto the helicopter, so where it doesn't physically have to land. You
guys can actually fast rope down, and I saw your ropes before, out of these, and land very quickly to deal with a potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah, correct. And we can also extract and hoist and lift back up.
That is remarkable and big change in the capability. Were you excited when you heard you were getting Blackhawks?
Yeah, we've been training on them. We've been working on them in partnerships with our American counterparts, but to have our own now in the RCMP, it's a huge step. It is.
And what has the training and process been like for you on these?
It's been so far about a 2-year ongoing process. There's multiple steps, multiple layers, multiple qualifications required to do different aspects and taskings, and my team's currently trained in every aspect of it, so we're perfectly timed for the arrival of these within the force.
When you get that call to go out, what does it feel like, and what are you thinking about as you get on this helicopter and head to the border?
It's no different than any other response in emergency. It's just another method, another platform on how to get there. Our equipment changes, cold weather operations, and what we have to wear on the platform. Our method of entry and security on these things, of course, changes, but it is really prepping for the mission and the requirements and the contingencies. No different than if we were doing any other operation on the water, on the land. Now it's in the air. We train for it, we're prepared for it, it's how we work. So it's just specific to this particular job and the mission set we're given, which is border enforcement.
Rob, thank you for taking the time to talk to us and for all the hard work I know your teams do to keep Canadians safe.
Thank you.
And we're joined now by another special guest, Matthew Wells. He's a sergeant who is the National Emergency Response Team coordinator for the RCMP across the country. An incredible capability that you guys now have. Can you tell us a little bit about what the range of this helicopter is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the helicopter, the range on it can vary, and that really depends on how much fuel we can carry. So a standard Black Hawk can travel approximately 600 kilometers. That depends on how much weight you have and equipment and personnel on board. But we can add internal and external auxiliary fuel tanks, and that can double or triple that range even to get us quite a vast distance that we can travel with a team if need be.
And if we kind of pull back and take, say the 40,000 foot view in an aircraft, but the national view, obviously the border is huge, it's very long. What's the RCMP's ability at this point to cover that off with the helicopters that you now have? Right,
so having this helicopter in particular, not just the distance, but it has a much higher payload to be able to take more people. So with that, we can take approximately 10,000 pounds of payload. That includes the fuel, includes the pilots and the co-pilot and all the crew on board, including us and any equipment we have. But then by extending that range, we can now move everybody we need and all the equipment we need in one helicopter, what would normally take 2, 3, 4 trips with one helicopter or multiple helicopters. So we can accomplish the same task and mission with one helicopter. So it really extends our capability that much more.
I imagine with you guys it's important to be able to move the whole team, because when you're training there's very specific maneuvers and you're used in high-risk situations where being able to execute things in a certain way is important.
Absolutely. And keeping that team together and to be able to respond with the team is what's important.
So now you're able to do this in some of the really common and high-risk crossings like British Columbia, Manitoba's been an issue too, and then of course the Quebec border is probably the one that's been the most difficult historically and that you're now also patrolling?
Correct. So we patrol coast to coast. That's the intention with these helicopters, is coast to coast and the border in between. And we'll be able to get there with the range and with these helicopters giving us that capability.
What kind of scenarios do you have an ERT team on board for? Are they on every time the helicopter goes up, sometimes, specific cases?
So it's really task oriented, depending on what we have to do. Certain tasks will be for border integrity police officers to deal with. Other tasks that require more tactical response would be the emergency response team assisting with those tasks. So those tasks can vary on what we respond to, but we're a service provider within the RCMP and we'll respond when we're called upon to assist.
What do you want Canadians to know about what you're doing and what this helicopter means for security of the border?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge capability that we haven't had, that we've been trying for and asking for years, and finally we're at this point. We've done a lot of training within our own emergency response team program to be ready for the day that we eventually would hopefully get these, and that's really what's helped us turn this around so quickly, is as a program we've been ready to receive this type of helicopter. So now that we have them, we can instantly transition to an operational phase with them.
Well, clearly time well invested in that training. Thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.